Hey everyone, this is Christopher Luxon, the former CEO of Air New Zealand.
This is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire.
This is Tracy Ibarra. I'm in Executive Solutions at Dell Technologies.
This is Travis Chappell, founder of Build Your Network. If you are wanting to learn how to embrace change,
To navigate through disruption as a leader,
then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast.
The Leadership is Changing podcast.
the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend,
my very good friend, Denis.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas.
Yeah, of course. So what's up, you guys? I'm glad you're tuning in. So what's interesting is I didn't really want to be an entrepreneur like right away. Like when I started pursuing my career outside of like college, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a fireman, right? And so I didn't get into entrepreneurship right away. And what's interesting is the reason why I chose fire was because my grandfather was in fire, and I was like, you know what, this could be a good career I could choose. I could stay in shape. I could earn a good income, provide for my family. But what's interesting is after I was in that, after like 6 years, as I realized I couldn't see myself doing that for the next 20 years of my life. And so I chose this first career path where I was just choosing it just to choose it because I'm fresh out of high school. I was like, let me just pick a career, you know?
Yep.
And my heart wasn't in it. And I was like, you know what? Like, what am I going to do? And I actually went through a year where I was sad, I was depressed, I was unfulfilled, and I was just not happy. And then randomly, someone one day showed me how to build a home-based business. And that was my first mentor. That was the first leader that showed up in my life that helped, that was pointing me in the right direction. And the rest is history. I made a decision from that day. I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to become an entrepreneur. I'm going to learn how to build a home-based business. And I'm going to take advice and learn from people who have the results that I want. And that was 7 years ago. And so made a decision to change my career. And, here I am today.
Yeah, it's fascinating how many people don't know what they want to do in their career. They don't even know what career they want to do. And then you've gone from that. But then when you found something and how that clicked, and what was that transformation like for you going from, I'm not sure what I want to do, to finding it? What was that whole transformation like for you?
It was very emotional because prior I was unfulfilled. I actually felt like depressed. Like I couldn't really see my future. I didn't even want to go to work. Every single day I would wake up, I was like, I do not want to do this. And I was like, this is what life is about. And then when I was introduced to entrepreneurship, it felt liberating. It felt like freedom. I felt like a brand new person. It felt like being born again. I was like, wow, like this is what life is supposed to feel like. And I was like, no matter how hard this is or how long it's going to take to actually become successful in this new career path, I'm going to do it because it feels right. And so I was really just going with my gut feeling at the time. I knew in my gut that the first career choice I chose was not a fit. And the second career choice into entrepreneurship was a fit. And I was like, I'm just going to trust my gut, take a leap of faith and see what happens.
Yeah. And so listeners, what Ryan's sharing is so great. And it's actually taking a leap of faith. And I think that for a lot of us, we procrastinate, Ryan, whereby people sit back and they don't make decisions. And even if somebody's in a leadership role, entrepreneur, doesn't matter what it is, they don't make decisions. They procrastinate about things and because they don't trust that leap of faith. What would be your thoughts about people taking a step or a leap of faith? What do you think they should do?
This is such a great question because when it comes to my leadership and me coaching people, I share a quote that I live my life by. And this quote is, risk going for the life you want or guarantee living a life you don't want. And that has helped me so much over the years because if you don't risk going for change in your life, going for a life that you won't want, you're just going to be stuck living a life that you're already living. If you don't change anything, nothing's going to change in your life. And so that's what I encourage. Well, that's what encouraged me at the beginning. And now that's what I encouraged others. I was like, risk going for change. Like life is so short. We're already so many years into life. We might as well live the best life we possibly can,
So risk going for change is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, risk going for change or guarantee living a life you don't want.
Yeah, that is so powerful, team. Yes, I see so many people, and then they actually, what's quite funny is they actually will make excuses or they'll reason with themselves why it's okay to have that guaranteed. And now, look, there are some people who love what they're doing and they're doing it day in and day out. Great, good on them. But there are so many people that you and I know, Ryan, that don't move on in life, don't do anything in life. They just stay where they are, and which is really interesting. So tell me something. How did you get into leadership?
So when I first got into entrepreneurship, and I mentioned that first leader showed up in my life. And so there was someone in my life that showed up by example and was literally teaching me how to become an entrepreneur, teaching me how to build a home-based business, showing me the books to read, the seminars to go to, the mindset to develop. That was the biggest thing, is he was teaching me how to think differently, right? And what ended up happening is after I was just, under this gentleman's mentorship for a few months and a few years, is I ended up becoming different. I started thinking different. All my behaviors started to become different. My habits started becoming different. The biggest thing I realized is when it comes to leadership, the first person I have to lead is myself. And that's what I wasn't doing previously in my life, is I was just kind of going with the flow of society. I was letting society lead me. That's what was happening. I was letting society lead me. I was letting the influence of family, friends lead me. And when that leader came into my life and I was like, hey, you can build a home-based business. You can become an entrepreneur. He was leading me. But what he did was he passed the torch. He let me know that I can lead myself. And that's where it all started. I was like, wow, it's up to me to take charge in my life. It's up to me to become the best version of myself. And, that was the start of my leadership journey right there.
Yeah, Ryan, I think you could also flip the coin there based on what you're saying. That was up to you, right, and to take that. But he was passing the torch. So I think from a leader's perspective, it's our responsibility as well to really help develop others and give them the opportunity and show them the way as well, which I think is really, really important in them actually doing that.
Thank you, Denis. That's a very kind welcome and good to be here.
Great. It's a small welcome about an introduction to you. Tell me more. Is there anything else that you want to share about your background?
Well, I guess I've been really lucky that I've had, two stages to my working career. So there's what I would call the pre-university phase, and then there's the post-university phase. So where I grew up in Invercargill in Southland, going to university was for my family was probably a step or a reach that was, not necessarily achievable. And so I ended up working in a factory in a wool scour in a carpet yarn, and I trained a textile dye, and I did that for nearly 10 years before I went to university. So post-university, I've been really lucky. I've done, I've had some fabulous roles. I've met some amazing people, and I've had some life experiences that money can't buy in some respects.
Yeah, cool. And what did you study in university?
Well, my first degree was in a BCom in marketing, and how that happened was that at the time when I was working for a company called Bonds Hosiery. I was the dye house supervisor, so I was 22 years old, thereabouts, and managing a team of people. And I was the youngest by far. And I used to have quite a bit of interaction with the marketing team, because essentially I would take their particular views on the colour of the hosiery and bring it to life. And so I kind of thought, gee, that marketing stuff looks quite cool. How do you do that? And so I had some conversations with one of the marketing team there, the brand manager, and that really set things alight for me. And then also at the time, Bonds started a graduate program, and I got interested in talking to some of them, and I realized that the opportunities that they were going to get versus the opportunities that I would get because I didn't have that degree were quite significant. So I was only ever going to progress. I mean, I was smart, I guess, and hardworking, but I was only ever going to progress if my boss liked me. That was it, or I impressed somebody. Whereas if I potentially had a degree, I could, in my own mind, I thought, well, I'd have more control, more levers, then I could, make the decisions that I wanted to make accordingly.
Good. Oh, it's great to hear. And tell me something. So how did you get actually into leadership yourself?
Well, it came on me at a young age, I think. So when I left school, I was 17 years old and I was being trained to be the dye house supervisor, a trainee cadet. And I got collared by the shift supervisor, foreman. His name was Ewan Tilson, and I've never forgotten him, ever. He was a fairly hard character, tattoos when they weren't cool, which signified that you were a hard man. He had one eye. He would be, I would say, late 30s, early 40s. But, he was a smart guy that hadn't probably had the opportunities because of his background. And he collared me at 17 and pulled me aside and said, "You're going to be the boss here one day. So what you need to remember is to treat everybody with the same respect that you want to be treated yourself." Now, that's a cliche, but when you got Ewan Tilson, one eye, covered in tats, a hard man looking at you hard, I thought, I better listen to this. And so at that time, I ended up running a night shift, and it was a bit of a gamble for the business at that time. They had a big production order in, and they couldn't meet demands. And so I ended up running the night shift for a couple of weeks and led a group of guys and had to teach them everything in that area who had never actually been in that area. And we ended up over-delivering all expectations. And it was simply because, my leadership method was I set the example through doing. And so I worked hard and kept everything focused, and they all just followed. And, that started really young. And then when I left home in Invercargill and I went to Wellington with Bonds Hosiery, I was 19. And I suddenly found myself as the shift supervisor managing a group of people that were at least 10 years older than I. So, again, it was very much a style of leading by doing and, trying to create a team where we actually all sort of supported each other. So I wasn't afraid of getting my hands dirty, in other words. And I learned those sort of on the ground, on the floor aspects really early. So that's when it started.
Yeah, wow. And tell me, because I think today you also with the multiple generations working in the workforce today, a lot of the younger ones are coming through as managers and leaders today. What was it like for you to have people who were older working for you? How was the transition for you, and how was it for them as well?
Initially I was a little bit daunted by it. I thought, God, I'm 19. I'm from Invercargill. I've never been out of town. It's my first time on a plane. And here I was in the capital city with these people that had lived a completely different life to me and in an environment that was completely foreign. So it was hard, and it challenged me on quite a number of levels. When I think back about it, I guess I didn't dwell on it too much. I just got on and did things. And, there was multiculturals and society in there, big Pacifica, big Māori, a lot of Southeast Asian people, so it was a real blending pot, whereas I'd come from a very monocultural background in Invercargill and Southland. So dealing with all that stuff was quite interesting. And I guess I just, my style is one of collaboration, and I think it started there. It wasn't me, the boss, the big white chief going, "Now you need to do that. And when you've done that, come and see me." It was like, we've got to do this. Let's go and do this. And this is how, I think we should attack it, And so as a consequence, the teams that I led on that particular shift at that time, we became quite high performing in our own way. Yeah. But I didn't have the science behind what was going on. I just kind of, it was very granular.
Yeah. And, what you've said a few times already is that you just got on with it, right? And you were on the floor with the people, rolling your sleeves up, getting on with it with them, rather than sitting in the office and pointing fingers, if I can put it that way, as an analogy. So It's a bit different.
Yeah, exactly right, Denis. And, there was a little bit of that from that current supervisor who ran that department. There was, a little bit of remoteness there, whereas I wasn't cut from that cloth. I was very much like my dad, just get in there, lead by doing, hands-on, and as a consequence of that, people learn to trust that, if I said I was going to do something or we were going to commit to something, we did it. So it kind of went from there. But it wasn't without its ups and downs, managing various egos and some of the conversations I ended up having, at 19 with some people that were, in their early 30s about, sex education stuff. It was just bizarre because, they hadn't had an education as such on some of the stuff. So they'd be coming to me and ask me, and I'm going, oh,
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I never judged them, because that was, my background was working class, and mum and dad worked hard, and dad had his own business. My mum was worked in a shop and worked in the hospital as a cleaner. Dad had his own electrical business. He left school at 15 to start work. That was it. So, as I said before, that whole notion of I'd like to go to university, it wasn't a conversation that we had. It was just, got to get a job, son. Okay, right, cool. Don't know what I want to do, but this,
Yeah, and I also think sounds like, also even at the age of 19, you built trust and rapport with those individuals. And so they felt safe, or they felt good to be able to come and have a conversation with you, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. And I remember there was one particular person who, she was Samoan. She managed, there was just the two of her, and she managed a particular area and that fell under my realm that was absolutely critical in terms of getting the detail right and and the information right. And she was known to be a hothead. She could be incredibly just temperamental and fly off the handle. So I spent a lot of time building a relationship with her, to the point that, I was the one that if there was ever a firework cracker went off, I was the one sent in to try and deal with it. But it didn't happen that often once I'd sort of come around, because I just gave her the courtesy of time. I think just listening, it's a really powerful thing. And I didn't even know I was doing it at that age, but that's essentially what I was doing. I'd go in and listen.
I think today, if you look at the leadership of the world today and what's happening around the world, people are wanting that right now more than ever. And so even think about it, those days, you're a pioneer in what you did there, right? And what's been happening today, people want to be heard.
That's exactly right. And I was having this exact conversation with a colleague yesterday, and the notion of soft skills, the leadership soft skills. And can you remember hearing that, over the last decade or so? Well, to me, they've always been hard skills. That's where the metal hits the road, to be fair, because you can have all the technical skills in the world and degrees and all the rest of it. But if you can't actually work with people, you can't actually bring them along, you can't actually create a culture and a team and all those things, which have traditionally been seen as soft, therefore not important, I think you're doomed to fail.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.